Greetings everyone, this is Jarvis. I want to give you my brief review or preview of the 23 hours I played on Evochron Legacy and just give you my general feelings of the game. Alright, let's get to it. Options for graphics are kind of basic, but the graphics of this game are basic all around. Not a bad thing though. But the ability to configure your controllers, or it'll recognize everything you plug in and it'll tell you what it is, and you can select it for any axis, anything at all. It's very, very flexible, and I was actually able to mimic my dual T16000M setup that I have from Star Citizen and make things work pretty much identically with just a couple of differences because there's some different mechanics in the game, different systems. But all in all, fantastic ability for this game to let you set up your controls exactly the way you want them. The game offers a wide variety of both combat and non-combat options for you to get into. I really recommend starting with as much non-combat as you possibly can, because some of the combat can be pretty intense, especially if they throw some capital ships into the mix. This game kind of reminds me of, if you were to hybridize what Star Citizen, a lot of the aspects that they talk about, and a lot of aspects that something like Elite Dangerous talks about, and kind of mushed them together, you get kind of this amalgamation of game types. And for those of you who were backers of Elite Dangerous and were disappointed that there was no single player option and got that refund, this really might be a good option for you to look into, because while the graphics are simple, the gameplay is very, very strong. And actually, the simplified graphics can actually be a very good thing. I mean, the retro gaming is back in a big way, and this game will pretty much run on anything out there that's modern. So it's something that you could load up on a laptop. It's something you can load up on about anything, maybe with the exception of your phones. Well, who knows. For those of you looking for track IR support, the game does actually support it very well. And you can even adjust the center from inside the game. It automatically recognizes it, and you have the option to turn that feature on and off by pressing F9. Flight is very strong in this game. In fact, you have several modes that you can choose from. You have basically your standard mode, where basically every input that you do is directly translated as a transitional movement. Now, the thrusters aren't as snappy as some games you may know. In fact, inertia has a real value to this, meaning that if you overshoot something or you're going too fast, you're going to have to spend as much time going back in that direction as you did shooting past it. So you have to be very much in control of your ship. If you go into full inertial mode, which is actually probably the most economical way to fly since fuel is kind of expensive and does burn up quickly, you're going to want to go ahead and set your ship on a course, select your speed, and just let space do what space does and make vector changes as needed. And these tactics can actually be mixed and matched in dogfighting as well, allowing for strafing passes, allowing for all sorts of other dogfight kind of chase scenarios, and you can mix and match them very easily on the fly. Now, this little scene right here, this is a mission that we have that, well, you have to chase asteroids as they're going into the planet before they hit the ground. It's a little bit of Armageddon, the movie going on here. But this was amazing because I pulled this one off, and I pulled off like 4,000 feet above the deck before when I got the last one, and that's pretty tight. But yeah, this is my favorite kind of mission so far right here. You have to be on the ball on this. You have to balance your energy, your system requirements, your drift, because if you look, this is one of my early ones here. I'm going to be shooting right past the asteroids because my inertia is too high, you see? And I have to compensate for that. Very cool flight system. Dogfighting has a little bit of an automated gimbal system in a sense that when you get a lock, the guns track a little bit to help zero in on your target. And you have basically two types of weapons that your ship can equip for energy. You have particle and you have beam. and those handle differently. Think of the beams as the, if you've seen Elite Dangerous, the solid beam lasers, and obviously you can see the particles firing on the screen. The particles do take more energy, but they're more effective against hull. The beam is more effective against shields and not very effective against hull at all. Well, at least mine anyway. Maybe I just need to upgrade them somewhat. But as you can see here, with all this inertia and whatnot, as I'm trying to dogfight, once again, this is probably like, probably been playing like 3 or 4 hours. This is probably like my second or third dogfight maybe ever. And I'm still trying to learn the drift mechanics. And this is where I feel that a game is kind of strong, is where there's a learning curve. And you just can't pick up all the nuance inside 10 minutes. And this game, the more I played it, the better I'm getting at staying really close to the enemies or coming at them from a really good angle. But initially here, I spend more time trying to correct my mistakes. But that's not the fault of the game. That's not the fault of the flight engine. And that's just the fault of me not being familiar with basically speeds, inertia, things like that. And you can get a lot of depth out of a system like this. I played a lot of flight sims, space, atmospheric, and otherwise. And it has that kind of feeling like it does when you play a lot of those sim-based games, where in the beginning you're kind of feeling like you don't know what you're doing, but eventually you feel like a master. And that's really what I feel like this game is going to lead you. Alright, now right here I wanted to show you the difference between like the energy drain. You pay attention to the lower left of the circle, the energy drain you're going to see on the particle weapons, how much faster they go down, versus the beam weapons, which I just had freshly crafted and added to my ship. And you can see these are pretty much hit scan weapons. You're just going to put the cursor right on them. They're going to hit. There's no lead or anything. They just hit. But they're pretty much, at least the ones I've made here, ineffective against hull, great against shields. I'm going to have to craft some other types later and see if there's ones that are actually more effective against hull. But these are really great for shields. Now what I'm demonstrating here is that, as you can see, I can't jump. Jump drive pulls from your weapon energy banks. And this is an interesting thing that they've done here. So you're doing online play or combat of any sort. If you want to escape, you have to stop shooting to let that system recharge. Otherwise, you're stuck. Planets, of course, are fully realized 3D objects with bodies of water, with mountain ranges, trees, all of that. And it's simplistic graphics, but you're going to get a really nice experience. You can actually go down to the planet and just fly slowly over the surface. Use your tractor beam to actually mine resources, whether that's water or pointed at the air if you're flying, get oxygen. Pointed at clouds, you get water. It's very interesting how they've done this here. This kind of mission you're looking at right here is basically they want to survey the planet, and they set up markers for you where you're going to basically fly over a route, and you take pictures of all the land. And this is also the reason I use this as well, because this was another instance where when you have inertial on, this is basically your speed becomes unlimited, and there's absolutely no limit to, well, exception of till you run out of fuel, that you can go. As you watch, my speed cap's going to go higher and higher and higher, and I'm going to end up actually doing this overshooting my mark and going way past, like, I think it was 55,000 kilometers by the time I was able to turn around and come back. And little mistakes became gigantic mistakes. As the faster you go, the less you're able to maneuver. And I just kind of keep pushing it and pushing it. And this is, once again, early gameplay, so I'm not used to these mechanics yet. But as you can see, I'm trying to adjust it right here. And I'm just starting to lose it because it's too much speed, but I'm still cranking it. So basically, with a game like this where you have limited fuel, if you burn 51% of your fuel going one direction, you're dead. You don't have the other 52% you need to turn the thing around. You're just finished. And that kind of conservation is a challenge I like to see in any game that claims to be a sim of any kind. So I cut out my return trip here because I figured that would be annoying to watch me fly back for 5 minutes. I really had this thing going, not 5 minutes, but for a while. But I had to come back and finish off the last few rings because, as I just showed you, I overshot the hell out of it. And I absolutely love a game that has these kind of mechanics that really kind of puts that responsibility on the player. I thought I could go faster and finish the mission faster. It turns out I made it take a whole lot longer. Of course, planets aren't just about rocks and trees and the occasional flying bird or pterodactyl that you see out there. You do actually have cities on the planets that you can land on and pick up missions. And some missions are particular only to planets. And also, when you're in the atmosphere, you have to maintain a flight speed of 250 or you will fall out of the air. So there's an aerodynamic flight mode when you enter the atmosphere, and you have to follow those particular rules. Also, as well, gravity affects your flight path, and this also has an effect in space if you get too close to... Well, there was one station that I approached that actually was parked pretty close to a star, and I thought that I was having some sort of controller malfunction, but I didn't realize that because the station's proximity to the star, the gravity from the star was actually trying to pull me to it. Very cool. Traveling from sector to sector is done through these jump gates. Those of you who played EVE Online will kind of recognize this mechanic, and those of you who have backed Star Citizen, this is like the equivalent of a wormhole they're going to be using from system to system. There's a lot of similarities that overlap in a lot of sci-fi games, and basically you just enter one of these, it takes over automatically. Each one is marked clearly on the map and takes you to one particular system. And just as a general rule of thumb, something I want to mention offhand, is when you're doing jumps or anything like that, even in system, look at where you're going, because sometimes your destination may be behind a planet and you'll need to actually set your route manually to go around that planet, because otherwise jump drive is not that smart in the sense that it will try to warp you through the planet and you will simply explode. Space stations, of course, they're all over the place. You can find several of them in each sector, and you can actually create your own space stations. If you harvest enough resources, you get the appropriate materials, I think licenses. This is a part of the game that unfortunately, even with the amount of hours I put in, which is paltry probably in the grand scheme of things on a sandbox game, I have a trailer at the end of this video that you'll see them laying out a base in a grid pattern, and I was also went to an online server with Lightning, and the person had set up their own base actually in an asteroid field, like right in the heart of it, and so you could just fly out the entranceway of any of the station, go a few thousand yards and harvest asteroids, turn right back around and sell right at the station. And man, that was some quick money making. So I would imagine that you would be able to go ahead and receive revenues from any NPCs that happen to come into your station to buy and sell goods and things like that. So generally speaking, I would imagine that bases are a way to generate a lot of money and supplies for yourself to open up new venues in the game. But once again, I haven't experienced this yet, so I really can't give you an honest assessment on it. And if you want more details on it, I'd recommend probably looking up something online about exactly the nature of bases and what they do in their entirety. Of course, bases are more than just a place where you can actually get missions. They're a place where you can store your goods and actually craft new items. Like here, as you can see, you can craft particle weapons, beam weapons, missiles, all sorts of fun things that you'd want to put on your ship. And what's interesting is this reminds me of like Morrowind or even Oblivion, where basically you could create spells, but basically what you're doing here is you're adjusting the stats of what the item is, and then of course this could require different components that you're going to have to go out and mine or purchase at different stations, and you can save these things to a recipe to make them later, because your items can get destroyed in combat. So if you have a weapon that gets completely knocked out, you may have to build it again later. And also you can find recipes out in space by bumping into these nodes. That's taught very early on in the campaign. And you have here additional things that can be crafted. Once again, I think some of these are tied into recipes I haven't discovered yet, and I can't really speak with a full amount of knowledge on this. Now this is one of the coolest parts. You can completely customize the way your ship looks. As you get bigger frames, which you see on the right, you get more room, more space to customize them. Change out the engines, change out the wings, change out the kind of armor you have, so on and so forth. And all these changes and parts you put on have an effect on the stats of your ship. Now what's very, very cool is that basically you can move them, as you can see here, anywhere you want on the ship, and make them bigger, make them smaller, stretch them, expand them. And I'd imagine, I guess, if you want to, you could probably make a ship with all the components unattached, but that would look kind of funky. But the point here is that this gives you a lot of flexibility to kind of make the ship look the way that you want it to with the parts that you've chosen. And yeah, in fact, the ship I have right now, after playing for 23 hours, doesn't even look remotely like this anymore. I've gone up like 5 frames. The wings are different. The engines are like massively different. In fact, they're 3 gigantic engines, and 2 of them are on the wings. So it's just very cool how quickly your ship can change, and this kind of customization really lets you make it your own and really kind of design it to the way that aesthetically pleases you. That's a feature I love in games, where you can really, just kind of make something and just say, this is my ship, no one else has anyone like it, and that's just awesome. You can also customize the internals of the ship, meaning what kind of things you can carry: more cargo, more weapons, more ammo, more armor, more countermeasures, whatever you want. You set it the way that you want. You get full customization of cosmetic and internals. Very awesome. Well, I'll leave you guys with this trailer here, and this is the official trailer for Evochron Legacy, and it should show you a few more things and some alternate ships types they made that you can see kind of some of the possibilities. Anyway, guys, this is, I think, a great game. Pick it up for $25 in Steam. Thanks for watching.